Hello and welcome to this episode of the I Am a Champion show. But before we get started, I'd like to mention that in the comments, there is a link for a free 5-day lesson on power of a positive attitude. Please click the link below to have access to that so you can train your middle school and high school kids how to have a power of a positive attitude so they can be even better in sports, in life, at home, and in public. Now, let's get into episode 26 of the I Am a Champion show. Well, good morning, fellas, and welcome to this episode of the I Am a Champion show. Jonathan, Jim, how are we doing today?
Doing good, man. It's been, some challenging weeks at work, but hey, every day above ground is a good day. And I get to see you guys on Friday, so that's like the highlight of my week. You're part of my social life now, Got
It's
got
a
my boys on
Friday,
Wednesday.
right? There we go.
Yeah, I'm gonna see my boys on Friday. Let's go. you know.
Is it okay for me to say anything right now, or should
Yeah,
I? I mean,
yeah.
no, I don't
Hey,
want to get.
somebody's about to
You
get
don't want to
Jimmy.
get
That's all
Jimmy
I know.
today. So hey,
Somebody's about
it's
to
a
get
great
Jimmy.
day. I'm excited to be here with the both of you. Pumped up to learn how to be more of I am a champion. Right today.
Yeah,
Well,
this is a
and
good Friday.
it's going to be fun today because we have a former college player, football player, Taj Dashaun, who talks about transitions in life after sports. And we have a Division I coach, Coach McRoberts from Missouri State Volleyball, talking about transition coaches have as well. So we're going to have a coach and a player aspect today because we all go through transitions in life, but I don't think, college coaches probably go through them more than anybody.
Yep.
And it might be one of the toughest transitions is going from being an athlete to being a normal civilian, right? So I think this is going to be really cool talking about them, about how we thrive through these transitions in life and some of the wisdom and insight they get from us. So we're going to invite Taj and Coach McRoberts on right now. Good morning, fellas. How are we doing today?
Good morning. Doing great.
Great to be here with you guys. Thanks for having me, gentlemen.
Yeah, well, glad you're having here. So Taj, we'll go ahead and start with you, man. You have really gotten an expert into how we thrive after sports with athletes. If you could tell us, like, number one, how did you, like, what was your own personal story pain point that made you want to go after that? And then number two, what do you think are some initial steps that athletes can take maybe while they're playing to help ease that transition process when they know that their playing days are about to come to an end?
Yeah, I always tell athletes you want to be able to identify something that you can be just as excited about in your life after sports as you were when you were pursuing it. I know nothing's ever going to replace the experience that we had when we were all playing, but you can find something that in a different way lights you up just the same. So for me, my experience was came home from college, didn't make it to the NFL, was completely lost. I didn't know who I was outside of a football jersey. I didn't even know how to put a resume together or what I wanted to do with my life. So immediately just went into a depression, just a lot of drinking at the time. And after I always tell people I had to make a decision. I could either keep feeling sorry for myself and just wallowing in self-pity, or I could apply my athletic mindset to everyday life. And once I realized, okay, I'm no longer competing in football, but now I have the opportunity to compete in the game of life, which that game goes on, until the day I'm 6 feet deep. And so at that point, started to pick the pieces up and really start to build a career for myself. Started out in recruiting, found a niche, really just loving helping people. And I started mentoring guys who were graduating after me. And that led me to identifying a need. This was 2017. Things have gotten a lot better now, obviously, in terms of athlete mental health and athlete transition. But at the time, I felt like I had acquired the skills and had gone through that journey personally of transitioning where I could step up and be someone to support athletes in transition. So it's been a fun journey, been able to help a lot of people, and started doing things like podcasting and writing books that I never even saw for myself. But at the end of the day, I still just love doing the one-on-one coaching. So that's a little bit about me.
Hey Taj, I do have a question on that. So you think about a lot of athletes, they don't figure out something they're passionate about until it's over, and then they struggle, like you said, going down to where now they're drinking or with addictions, or there's life's going in a negative direction. So my question for you is this: I suggest that you're talking about athletes. You kind of figure out maybe things they're passionate about, why they're playing, and maybe do different things. And then as Coach McRoberts is on here and he's in college working with college athletes, what would you love to see coaches doing more at the college level, like you wish your coaches did for you when you were a college athlete, to help you find maybe that passion and find out what you're going to do after sport of football is done for you?
That's a great question. And I realized over the years, as I've grown up, I had to take some accountability for how I could have better prepared myself. Because when I graduated, the reason I say that is I was bitter. I was blaming the university, blaming the coaches. But at the end of the day, they did their part. They gave me a scholarship and gave me a free education and, allowed me to play some football. So really, that's their job. That's the coach's job to focus on winning games. So I think one thing that could be done better is probably bringing back more players who are successful, just to have them speak to the team. I think universities in general, not just coaching staffs, but universities have gotten better over the years and not just, not just bringing in people who are checking the box. No offense to anyone, but people will come in and do, financial literacy workshops and things like that. That's great. But I really think what needs to happen is digging beneath the surface. And another thing I always say is that it really doesn't get real until it gets real. So we've all played, you can conceptualize, hey, I might want to do this, I might want to do that. But until you hang up the jersey for the last time and you get out there and start to try things, you're not really going to know if the path you think you want to go on is right until you get in the midst of it. So it takes a lot of self-discovery and really just trying to figure out. I always say you have to cultivate the clarity and figure out what it is that you want. What's going to allow you to operate in a way where you can be the best version of yourself, but at the same time have an impact on others. So I don't know if that answers your question, Jim, but
yeah. And Coach,
probably did. What about you, Coach? What about you, Coach McRoberts?
I think Taj made some really good points there. Some things that I've seen over the last 5 to 10 years that I think that have really helped our student athletes where I've been is do internships in the summer. And that way, not only are they getting out and kind of being in the real world, as Taj would say, but they can kind of figure out, is this kind of what I want to do? And they're making some connections there. And it's also a resume builder. I think where some athletes and just even the general population of college is missed out is they go through 4 or 5 years of college and they get out and the first thing that they apply for says they need experience. And they're like, well, how do I get experience if I'm in college? Well, being able to put down that you've done some summer internships automatically gets you on their list, and they might be willing to consider that. Again, whoever's what their talent pool is for whoever's applying for those jobs, but helps them a lot. And I think student athletes, and it's a human thing, are so focused on and again, this is general population, but so focused on a paycheck when they get out that they're looking at what am I going to make every month versus what am I passionate about doing. And I would have never gotten into college coaching, and especially volleyball in college, or I started at the high school level, if I was worried about a paycheck. I get to wear sweats every day. I get to work with athletes. I get to, at the college level can control some of my time, which is important because I have a family. And so I get to wake up every day and really enjoy what I do. And there's months where it's tough to try to figure out, that money part of it with a family of 5. But you know what? I wouldn't trade it for anything. I remember when I first graduated college, I had a friend who was an accountant, and he called me one day. He goes, "Man, I screwed up. I wish I was doing what." And I said, "Well, I wish I had your paycheck, but I think it's about finding what you're called to do and being able to wake up every day, and that helps with a lot of the mental things that we're talking about as well. If you can wake up ready to work and not really consider it work, that helps immensely."
Well, I would add on to both of what you guys are saying. I honestly have a different perspective. I mean, Taj, I've been through what you've been through. I've never been a coach in D1 as you coach Roberts, but I've been around coaches like that. And I think that there needs to be a village mentality. My daughter's a D1 athlete, and what we did before she went to school, she was doing internships at companies I worked at, doing social media, doing internships with other companies, and doing projects on the side. And now she's doing work for the school itself, helping with their marketing and their apparel and their NIL stuff. So she's getting experience both. By the time she graduates, you're going to have 4 or 5 years of actual practical hands-on experience along with your degree. And I think that's from a parent perspective, and that's talking to coaches and working out with the coaches at high school to get, hey, she needs this time to do this internship so that, and she'll be in summer training, but she needs this time to do this internship because look, it's for her future. And then to Taj's level, I think that former athletes that go to schools, like I went to San Jose State. We have a thing called Beyond Sparta, which we do like every month. We come back and talk to them about careers, where they're at. We're in Silicon Valley. You have no excuse for not getting an internship out here. There's every company in the world's out here, or has an office here, or works with somebody here. And we keep trying to teach the young players, like, you got to take control of your future, dude. Because I know you see yourself already playing the NFL, driving a car and blinging out, but you're an inch away from, or stepping off a curb, or being in a car accident, or getting sick away from that dream going away. You better be prepared for something. So what I would like to see from both of you here is, let's say it goes all wrong, completely wrong. What are the top 3 things you think a person should look at from a player point of view going to college, or when you're bringing a recruit in to make them understand? 3 things you say, or close to it, that if something went totally wrong, what would you advise them to kind of start doing? I'll start with you, Taj.
You're saying if a player comes in and it goes totally wrong in terms of they're just not able to compete anymore?
Yeah.
I'd say number one, I never want to come to someone and just say, hey, so your career's over. What are you thinking about doing now? It's we all know it's way too soon for that conversation. There has to be a level of not only healing that takes place from the fact that you have to come to a place of acceptance, but also just celebrating the fact that you made it to that level, right? Before I even start talking about career paths or anything with anyone, I'm having them celebrate the fact that they made it to an elite level, and also just come to a place where they can get excited about the rest of your life, right? So I say most people wrap up their careers in their early 20s, mid 20s, late 20s maximum if you play professionally, but you have another 60, 70, 80 years on the planet. And when you start looking at it like that, it becomes exciting because your whole future is ahead of you. So, the 3 things I would say, just to sum it up, is number 1, celebrate where you've been, be proud of your accomplishments. Also, going into the second step is look at how you can use everything you learn from your sport. I know you guys talk a lot about transferable skills on here, and you look at how you can use that moving forward. And then number 3 would be just craft a vision for your future so that you can reverse engineer it. And don't think small. A lot of people, I think Jason, I think you said this earlier. It's where you look at, that was Coach McRoberts who said that, where you look at the experience. Like, athletes are coming out and you're looking at, man, I need this much experience, but I don't have any experience. Who cares? Don't look at where you're at. Look at where you want to go, right? Look from where you're at and reverse engineer it, and you'll get there. So those are the 3 steps I would share.
What about you, Coach McRoberts?
The first thing that came to mind was one thing that we talked when we were going through the recruiting process, is that pick a university where you would go and you could see yourself whether or not volleyball was involved at all. Yeah. And so that way, if it does go south, as you're saying, you're in a spot that you would be okay being in, whether you had volleyball or not, whether that's an injury, or now we are seeing so much with this transfer portal, and it's crazy. I'm sure y'all have talked about that before on this. It's nuts what's going on. And we see on the big sport, like ESPN and stuff, we see it at the level of football and basketball, but it's going on in all sports. So that would be, pick a school that you can see yourself, pick a school that, for education, and it's going to have what you're going to be passionate about. Like we talked about, some know, some don't, but put yourself in a situation where you're going to feel like this university is going to provide that for me. And a couple of other things that I kind of thought about that from a core value standpoint for us is serving others and being grateful. When we can kind of step out of ourselves and not be selfish about everything in life, and really see how blessed we are with what we've been given. And most of the players that make it to this level have been blessed in a lot of ways to make it to get here, is to focus on that, focus on the good.
Coach McRoberts, you've had a lot of transitions in your coaching career from, just taking different jobs, and you have a family as well. Can you, as a lot of Division I coaches and college coaches in general, there's a lot of transition. Can you share with us a couple, like maybe 2 to 3 tips on, great ways to, prepare for a transition, prepare your family, and And it's always messy whenever you transition to something new. There's you don't know anybody or you're moving again. So what are some things that you've done that you felt like made the transition easier, even if you're still in the same profession, but you're in a different area? Can you enlighten us on that for a little bit?
Sure. And I'll tell you where I've screwed up, and that's not being focused enough on my family in the transition. The easiest person, and I may be overstating this, but in my transitions out of my family, of course, the easiest person to make this transition was me. I mean, I get plugged into a new school. I'm automatically around people, like whether it's a staff, I can bring somebody with me that I already know, like I did here at Missouri State. I have players. I have a support system with administration and other coaches and a school. Well, my wife goes into a new house, into a neighborhood where she knows nobody. My kids don't know anybody. We don't have a church home. We don't, and this actually happened when we got here at Missouri State. We had been here a month and everything shut down. We knew nobody. And so the blessing and the curse in that is that I was able to spend 3 months with my family in a house, and I got reacquainted with my kids. And it's sad to say that, but I was at Ole Miss before I came here, and that SEC life is draining. I mean, it's day in, day out, no matter what sport you're in, you feel like you are just engulfed in it. And I lost myself. I lost my who I was as a father and as a husband, and it hit me in the face. I'd say it's a lot easier to plan for a transition without being fired when you're actually choosing the next place that you go. But when you get called in to the office, like I did at Ole Miss, and they say, hey, we're going a different direction, it rocks your whole world. And had kids that loved where we were at, and my wife, and we were ingrained in that community. And for the rug to just be pulled out from under our feet and having to figure it all out on the fly is tough. And like I said, I felt like I was really blessed that when I got here that everything shut down, and was able to start with a foundation of family first. And when I interviewed with Missouri State and they were going through, the benefits and here's where we're at as a program stuff, I even stopped them during the interview and said, I don't really need to know about the job. I need to know if this is going to be a good place for me to move my family. That's why I need to know about Springfield. I need to know if it's going to be a safe place for them, because I'm not at this point going anywhere that's not good for my family, no matter how good the job is. And so this ended up being a great landing spot for us.
Hey, Coach, when you mentioned that being at Ole Miss and you're a coach, and they talk about in coaching, you're in it long enough, you're probably going to get fired at times. And when somebody tells you you're not good enough or you got to go somewhere else or whatever, that can be hard to hear. And we talk about confidence in sports is so key, not only as athletes, but as coaches, because I talk to coaches sometimes, they stop believing maybe in themselves. Can you talk about that when hearing that word, like we don't have a spot for you anymore, or we got to go in a different direction, how you dealt with that and still believed in yourself moving forward and find the opportunity at Missouri State?
Yeah, it's humbling for sure. And again, in 25 plus years doing this and winning over 70%, and actually going in and taking a job where they were basically dead last in the conference and getting them to the middle of the pack. 3 out of my 6 years, we finished 7th, and if you look at some other SEC sports, if you finish 7th, you're in the tournament. And volleyball was a little bit tougher to do that. We had 2 years earlier won a tournament that's basically like the NIT of volleyball, and felt like we were kind of riding a little bit of a high at that point. And I had never, up until that point, ever even felt like it was a threat to walk into an administrator's office and them tell me that I'm not good enough, as you said, like we didn't do enough. I had mixed emotions. Part of me wanted to start fighting right then, as far as like, telling them what we had done and how we had done it. And we had done things the right way, and we were building, and we had just signed a top 30 recruiting class about 2 weeks earlier. First time we had ever done that there. And I didn't get a chance to coach them. But there's also a stubborn part of me that as soon as somebody were to say, look, we don't want to work with you anymore. Well, I don't want to work with you anymore either. Like, I don't want to try to fight for a job when I know my boss doesn't want me. Why do I want to be here if you don't want me here? And that's a lot easier for me to say than to walk in and tell my wife that who wants to be there, and my kids that want to stay there. But yeah, it was really humbling, and I was thankful to come in and have a group here that really accepted me, and did a lot for my confidence as a coach to kind of build me up. And I think that's what you have to do. You need to surround yourself where you're building them up and they're building you up. Again, I think it's about pouring into others to get your own cup filled. You can't be so selfish to be thinking it's all about you. And especially in the head coaching position, there's so many moving parts, and it'd be so easy to make it about me. And I was disappointed for my staff. I was disappointed for my players in that regard, and my family. But it was at that point just time to move on. And again, thankful that I found a spot that worked.
So I'm going to tag on to that. Now I'm going to talk to you, Taj. You're from the athlete point of view, and I've been in your shoes, brother. I know what it feels like to know when it's over and like know when it's really over. And that first year was, it was tough. I heard you about the drinking and not eating right and doing stuff. I did the same thing. I mean, I just went, I'm tired of being in shape, tired of working at this. And I was like ordering, round table supreme pizzas and stuff, and eating ice cream. I was like, it was awful. But, you come to your senses, you have kids and things like that. But that first time when did you realize, like, I got to move forward. I got to let this go and step up my game? Like, when did that hit you?
So I always go back to, I moved back home, and don't get me wrong, I'm grateful that I even had parents who allowed me to move back home after college, because I know a lot of people don't even have that luxury. It's like, hey, you're out the house, you got to get to work. They were like, come back home, just figure it out while you get on your feet. But the moment for me was I'm back home, and, I was drinking. Like, I had a lot of my boys who were back home who all played D1. So we were all back home in our hometown, lost, no idea what to do, all struggling. So we were drinking like Thursday through Sunday, just out. And the moment for me was, as an athlete, we're used to just getting up early, doing what we need to do, handling business. But I was waking up hungover, 11 a.m., noon. And I woke up one morning in my childhood bedroom, and I'm looking at my little Pop Warner trophies, and I'm like, man, I grew up in this bedroom, and here I am, a 23 going on 24-year-old man with no money, nothing going for myself, and just drinking every day. And I had a long talk with myself in the mirror, like, you can't do this anymore. Like, you can't be out drinking. You got to figure something out. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck here. You're going to be 25, 26 before you know it, still living back home in your childhood bedroom. So I just went to the mirror that day, splashed some cold water on my face, and I told myself I was going to stop drinking, and I did. And I actually went out that day and went for a run. Now, mind you, I woke up at noon, so it's not anything spectacular. It's not. But I woke up at noon. Baby steps. And I was terribly out of shape. But even the fact that I went for a run and I was out of shape, I was like, man, because it's not just about my physical health. It was about the mental health too. And I was like, I'm never going to feel this way again. The way I feel right now, I'm never going to allow myself to steep to this low. And sure enough, I never went back. So that was the turning point for me to like start getting my life together.
Yeah. And Jason, I know you want to jump in, but just add to your story. Dude, it's like, I went through the same thing. I was drinking, eating, acting stupid, was taking care of it. And then one day I woke up and looked in the mirror, and I had a full beard, hadn't taken care of my hair really. House was a mess. And I woke up and I said, I don't know, what am I doing? Went and shaved, got my hair cut, cleaned up the house, went right to the gym, and got a new membership and started working out. Just like the same thing exact happened. To this day, Jimmy teases me, but to this day, that's why my beard and mustache is always tight. My hair is always, it reminds me, I'm not going back to that moment ever again. That's my little thing. But go ahead, Jason.
Well, yeah. And, Taj, a lot of people say, hey, man, I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. But then they fall back into old habits. Maybe it's the people that they're hanging around, or maybe it's, they're in an environment or whatever. Like, what was it for you that you did specifically that helps you not go back to that? Because again, a lot of people say that, but they don't always follow through with what they say. How are you able to follow through with what you said of like, this stops here, I'm making a pivot, I'm a U-turn, whatever it is, and I'm thriving forward? What was that for you?
Yeah, well, I have this thing that I say, which is like running from the nightmare and running towards a dream. And the nightmare was being, like I said, 25, 26, 27, God knows how old I would have been if I didn't get it together, still living at home. To me, that just didn't sit right with me because I knew I was capable of more. And the dream, as I started to craft that for myself, it started small. Of course, it was just at that point, just get out the house, get my own spot, have my own income, be able to stand on my own 2 feet as a young man. But then the goalpost continues to move over time, right? So like I said, it moves into, okay, now I'm at the house, now I got a job, but I'm not fulfilled. I feel like I could be making a greater impact. That leads to me starting ThriveAfterSports in 2017, going into 2018. And then it becomes, okay, well, I have a vision for where this can go and how many athletes I can impact. So in order to stay accountable, I have to remember that. And once again, forgive me, I'm just enjoying listening to you guys talk. So I forgot who bring this up, but somebody mentioned it's not all about you. I think that was Coach McRoberts. Like that was the thing that kept me accountable too. Like now I'm at a point where people are looking at me or listening to my podcast or reading my books, or I'm, going to schools and speaking or coaching X amount of former athletes. And I have a responsibility at that point to not allow myself to fall by the wayside because there are people who are looking at me. And also I'm not able to show up as my best self if I'm doing things that are going to ultimately sabotage, who I am. So to this day, I might have a drink every now and then on a special occasion, but I really try not to touch any of that stuff. I'm just trying to, operate at the highest frequency.
And Taj, to further your point, that was very similar to me. Like I was a freshman in college at Missouri State, and my uncle and my aunt had a baby. Like, so my cousin, she's my first cousin, right? But she's like 19 years younger than me. But they're like, hey, we want you to be your godfather. And I was like, oh, okay. So whenever other people are involved that look at you a certain way, and then like, hey, we want you to be an example of for our daughter on what to, how the right way to act. That takes a whole nother level of responsibility of like, man, I got to make sure I check myself because and you're going to mess up. You're not going to do things right. That's going to happen. But I mean, overall though, you're like, am I going to be the person that somebody looks at, man, like, I hope I'm like them. And that's one thing I think that through transitions can help you shift your whole perspective. And Coach McRoberts, you might be, as somebody that has, 3 kids and transitioning, like being the example of what to do in those kind of situations as well. To me, I think that helped me transition after my dad passed, going to college of, I got to be an example of what to do, not the example of what not to do. So I don't know, Coach, if you want to elaborate on that at all yourself with the transitions you've gone through too, but.
No, I mean, I from 2 different ways. Definitely as a father, you want to be an example to your kids on how to handle adversity, or even just, just moving and changes and things in general. But when I was fired, I had the opportunity to go one of 2 ways, and I could have been bitter about it. And because definitely I had a case to show that what we had done in those 6 years was much better than what had been done the 3 or 4 years before. But I was able to, on social media platform, be able to use it to thank all my staff, to thank players, to thank, I used it as a way to be grateful instead of use it as a way to kind of lash out. And we have talked a little bit on here about mental health already. It really helped my mental health to focus more on all the blessings that I had been given through that 6 years. Because when I first started at a small 1A high school in Arkansas, making $16,000 a year, coaching volleyball, basketball, and golf, and having like 5 or 6 classroom preps. And then all of a sudden one day I'm sitting in a locker room at Ole Miss with my best friend, and he's looking around and going at all the, seeing like Florida and Arkansas and Tennessee and all these names. He's like, man, did you ever think about this. And I was like, I haven't. And so I tried to enjoy every bit of the opportunity that I had to coach at that level, because that's really not even why I got into coaching. I didn't get into coaching to try to see how high I could go. It just happened. And so I got fired and I was upset, but then being able to take the emotion out of it, there's not many coaches that got the opportunity or will get the opportunity to do what I got to do. So I looked at it from a grateful heart versus a bitter heart.
Hey, you mentioned earlier, Taj, and you talked about, like, and I understand that as an athlete, expecting coaches to do certain things for you, not to blame people where you're at. But I do want to shift in this, and Coach McRoberts, I feel like, you're talking about college athletics. It is pressure to win. You win, you stay. And and I know there's coaches in collegiate that aren't doing it the right way, in the sense that maybe cheating, they're taking advantage of kids. It's about them. They're trying to win, use kids. And I'm big in, I believe that us as coaches, you can succeed in that area on the scoreboard, but what are we doing to transform the lives of the athletes we take in? Because as a coach, when they come and play for you, I look at it, it's like you're an extended father or mother, whatever, and you're taking care of these kids and developing them into young men and women that can succeed in life. And I feel like maybe at Ole Miss, you've done that, but they focus a lot maybe on some of the scoreboard part of it, right? And you're building that culture. Can you talk about, like, what you think as coaches out there? Can you speak to them and say, like, these are things that we need to be doing more as coaches to develop the athletes that we have so they succeed not only on the court, on the football field, but after the fact to win in the game of life?
Yeah. And I think there's a majority that are doing it the right way. What we see on ESPN and what might blow up on, the headlines is what you see is some coaches that are cheating and cutting corners. And we are in a world now where there's been a shift. There's been a pretty major shift in the last 5-8 years where it was totally coach controlled to now the student athletes have more power than the coaches. They control a lot of the narrative. But with what you're asking on what we can do, one of the biggest things, and I know, Jonathan, you dropped your daughter off at school and you want her to be successful. You want her to be a good volleyball player. But I guarantee you the number one thing that you thought about before you dropped her off was, I want to make sure that whoever's in charge of her is going to care about her and love her.
Exactly.
And so that's I didn't understand that as much until I became a dad. And coaches that don't have kids, and I know plenty that have great hearts, but once you start having your own kids, and I have a 17-year-old right now, and I want him to be surrounded by people that walk the walk, and they're going to live the way and be that I want him to have good examples. And so that, to me, again, I didn't necessarily get into this to move up to the SEC level. But as I've gone along, I've seen the importance more and more about just pouring in to your athletes and being a good example and just talking about life things when you get the opportunity to do it. And Taj, one of the things that you kind of said earlier about when athletes come back and talk, it's huge. But I tell you, we all lived in that 17 to 21, 22-year-old life. And how much did we really listen when people were talking to us? And I say every once in a while when I'm about to talk to my team, I'll say, here's your old man with the gray beard who's going to talk to you for a little bit about life. And I know some of you are going to tune me out, but I'm going to say it anyway, and I'll try to talk to him about a story, whether it's experience or something I read or something, just to talk to him. Because some of that stays with them. But I really think the transition happens, Taj, when they leave and they get put in a position where you and Jonathan were, is like, if we can network enough while they're here, then they'll have that support when they leave, when they really need it. And they really need some of these former players that they can talk to. And that's when we kind of hit rock bottom, is when we're willing to listen the most. It's not when we think we've got everything figured out.
Yeah, I think you touched on a couple of things, and you're right. When I dropped off Jordan, I honestly, she'll kill me for saying this, but I didn't care if she played or not. I really didn't. It was, are you going to be in a good place where you're going to be happy, you're going to get a good education, and have the opportunity to do what you want to do for your life? That's all I cared about. And for me, and to you, Taj, to touch on the same thing, both of you guys, I think what you guys are saying is what I've learned the hard way is, and if I could tell younger players or younger coaches or younger parents, is you need to enjoy the journey. You really, really do. I didn't realize it until I was like late 30s, going to my 40s. I went to my mom and I literally asked her, Mom, was I happy? And she goes, baby, I love you. I don't have favorites, but you were the kid I never worried about. And I go, why? And she goes, because you were always focused on the next game or the next series, or the next job, or you never stopped and just enjoyed what happened. And it took me too long to get to that point. So, to me, that'd be the best advice. And it's hearing both of you guys kind of confirm that. I got my ways of thinking about it, but as a parent, as you said, Coach McRoberts, as a player and as a coach, what would you do to help people to get better at enjoying the journey and being present? Jimmy and I talk about this all the time, being present and realizing that this is what you do, not who you are. And I've never really mastered teaching other people to do it. I'm still learning myself. So, I'll start with you, Taj. How would you do it?
Well, Coach McRoberts brings up a great point in that you can talk to athletes till you're blue in the face about getting prepared and enjoying the journey. And, this isn't going to last forever. Enjoy your time here. But it really doesn't get real until it gets real, honestly. And that's almost why I enjoy working with athletes when they're done playing, because there is that need. Now you're at a point where there's no practice, film, games, travel. It's like all you have is time to focus on what you're doing. In terms of enjoying the journey, like you asked, Jonathan, I think, man, it's tough, because when you're young, you feel like you're invincible, and it's like you're never going to stop playing. So I don't know. That's the question of the ages right there. I don't know if you can really talk to an athlete who's in high school or in college and really have them understand how quickly it does go by. But I think that the best thing we could do is keep trying. Like Coach McRoberts said, you still get up in front of them and talk to them anyway. Whether or not they receive it, that's really on them. But the ones who get it, it's really going to resonate with them. And then even if it doesn't make a huge impact right there at that moment, it still does something, even if it is subconsciously. And then, like I was just saying, it really does start after they're done playing, because at that point you can really step in and really do a lot of good in terms of helping them with the next chapter of their lives. So I don't know if that answers your question, Jonathan. That's just what came to mind.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What about you, Coach?
Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely about perspective. And again, when I was 17 to 22, I didn't have very much perspective, as much as people told me I needed to have a better perspective on things. I think I read at one point within the last few years, that about 1% of volleyball athletes make it to the Division I level. So we go to these national qualifiers. You've seen it, Jonathan, 100 courts going on, morning wave, afternoon wave, all these kids, and like 1% are going to make it to the Division I level. And then I feel like sometimes they get to, they work so hard to get to their college team, and then they don't know what to do next, because everything's been about getting there. And then what do I do now? Instead of, again, having things kind of lined out as goals and, all right, here's the next thing. But I stopped my team the other day and said, I felt like we were having this really stressful practice and had a few of them in a row. And I just said, guys, this is just volleyball. Like, it's not life or death. Like, enjoy this. You know how many players would love to be in your shoes right now? And we put, again, I think social media in so many ways is great, and in so many ways is just killing these kids from a mental health standpoint, and who they're trying to figure themselves out by comparing themselves to thousands of others. And they get told how great they are for so long, and then they get put in a gym with a lot of players just like them and don't really know how to handle it.
Yep.
And so being able to handle some adversity, being able to work hard and realize I can work as hard as I want and may not get the result I want. But I can still look in the mirror and go, I got the best out of me. And to me, that's positive mental health, is to be like, who I am doing the absolute best with. And so that's what our focus on a little bit for them is just try to improve a little bit every day. Quit comparing yourself even to people in your position on your own team, much less everybody across the country. But I hope that kind of answered what you wanted there.
Oh, totally. Like I've had that conversation with Jordan about that 1% to 2% that actually make it to a D1 school. And in football, the odds are even in some cases worse. It's like, you made it. Now just enjoy it, as opposed to you made it and, oh my God, I got to chase the next rung. You didn't even take a blip to like, oh my God, I got here. And when she was getting recruited, it was a little stressful, but not for me. It was completely stressful for her. It was like a rejection letter or an acceptance letter. And then she had this vision board up, and here's all the schools I got into. Here's the ones that want me for volleyball. We went and visited. And I was like, baby, take a deep breath. You realize you got into 16 schools. You realize you're kind of fortunate financially. Daddy can pay for college. So that's not an issue. And you got 6 schools that want to play volleyball. Do you want to play volleyball? Or you just want to go to college? She goes, I want to play volleyball. Well, then these are our 6 choices. And one of them already offers you a scholarship already. So even if everything falls apart, just go to the school if you like it. There's no stress here.
Sure.
This is like being at a party and you have to pay for nothing. This is awesome. It's perfect. And to see the stress on her face blew my mind. I mean, to your point, Coach, she was not seeing the journey. And that's why I was asking, like, how can you get better at teaching kids to understand that? But at the end of the day, it's just wisdom and time. And like Taj says, being real. You know, my dad always said, wisdom is a result of ass whoopings, mental, emotional, physical. That's just the way it is.
Well, and I'll add one more thing if I could. I think one thing that I every once in a while try to bring up, because we've all been there too, is like perspective of, we were stressed out just like they are stressed out now. And it's not about mowing the path down for them, but helping them realize, like, how stressed out were we in college when we were about to take a big test? And now we look back on that and kind of laugh about it, because it really wasn't even that big of a deal. But the different parts in our life, they mean something, but yet the perspective is, how stressed was I a year ago about something that today I can't even remember what that is. Most of the things that we are the most stressed about never even happen. That's I know that's a quote somewhere. I've quoted it to my team. I was like, all this stuff, the most of the things you're stressed about don't even ever happen. So we're wasting energy and a mindset to dwell on those things.
What I'm going to get to is, you mentioned, Coach, about, you talk to your players and sometimes they tune you out, but you also mentioned like being a great listener, like listening to your players. And I know, Taj, you also work with athletes a lot, and I'll start with you, Taj, on this one. I want to hear Coach McRoberts, but what are some great questions we can ask athletes to maybe understand them better, to maybe be able to relate to them more, like, and see what they're going through? Because, Coach, like you mentioned, sometimes being a great listener will be way more impactful than anything you ever say. So do you all have some questions you all ask certain athletes or people about to really dive in and get to know them and understand what they're going through?
Yeah, for me, I'll just talk specifically about those athletes who are trying to figure out what's next. Something that I ask is, it's asking a question, but more so telling them, think about how you want to live versus what you want to do. So it's a question where I think about, and I always go back to the questions that I needed people asking me, because everyone at that time when I graduated and I wasn't playing football anymore, it was, so what are you doing now? What are you going to do? And that puts so much pressure. Where really it's putting, I put pressure on myself, but a lot of athletes go through that where you're almost like scrambling to try to figure out what you want to do. Like Coach McRoberts said earlier, we're just like, you finish playing your sport and you're just like, man, I need some money. I need a paycheck, versus actually thinking about, what do I want my life to look like? And so that's a question I think you can ask. How do you want to live versus what you want to do? It forces someone to go into a totally different mode of thinking. And another question I like to ask is, instead of just like, how's it going? How are you doing? I'll say, like, how's your world? Like if I'm talking to you, Jason, like, how's Jason's world? And I'll just kind of sit with that and just allow that question to sink in, because it's different from how you doing, Jason, versus how's Jason's world. It forces you to think about every aspect of your life. And chances are you'll get a much deeper answer than if you just ask someone, how you're doing. So I'm not a coach that works with athletes while they're playing, but just advice to coaches who are listening. I think that's something you can try asking your players, because it actually shows that you care. I even had some coaches who would ask me that. Some coaches don't care at all, of course. They'll never ask you how you're doing. But I had a few coaches in college that really stick out in my mind, and they would ask me that question: how's Taj's world? And we would just have a long chat in the office. And I think it makes a world of difference when, you know, like you were saying, Jonathan, when you got a kid who's away at college, it's so important for them to know that you have people there who actually care about them in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I lucked out actually. My daughter, she goes to school in Florida near Daytona Beach, and Jason has introduced me to a friend who's become a real good friend of mine. She lives 15 minutes from the campus, so Jordan has a place to go and talk to and just get away from the campus stuff. I have a place to stay when I come visit. Her mom and her aunt now live in Florida across the peninsula, like 4 hours away, so it gives her some space. But she's got a support system, and like she's just starting to understand how blessed she is, because some of the kids that are on her team don't have that. One girl, her mom had caught cancer. They were worried about her tuition. She got injured, may lose her scholarship. There's all this thing that was going on. She just called me up like just 3 weeks ago, go, Dad, you know, I really want to say thank you. And I was like, oh, you know, you're a parent. You know how it is, Coach. Sometimes when your kids come to that epiphany and have that conversation with you, like, wow, they listened. And it's like the light goes off, you know. But it was a really good moment, man. But it was what you just said, Tosh, to tie it back to that was, I said it to my daughter all the time. So how's your world today? How's your world going? Like, it's funny that you use that line. It's probably the most best line that you could probably use for your kids or for athletes and stuff. But I know Jimmy wants to jump in there. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to get into is, you know, Taj, you talked about, and Coach McRoberts, you can probably speak to this, but, you know, you got done playing and you struggled because you didn't have something you're passionate about, but then you got in some negative maybe routines. You're waking up at noon and you're, you know, drinking, doing stuff. And as athletes, and Coach McRoberts, like, you have athletes follow routines. Everything's structured for them. You know, it could be waking up at this time. You're going to class at this time. You got study hall at this time. We're eating at this time. We're working out at this time, right? And it's structured. And the routines that they follow help them have that success. What are things you can recommend maybe when they get done playing, they transition out of it to stay within certain routines that they can do, whether it's morning routines or evening routines or something that gets them in that athlete mindset they've been in to help them have success? Now they're not playing anymore. Now they're pursuing something else.
Yeah, I think I want to say one thing that Taj said before, because I make this mistake, and then I'll get to your question, Jim. Sorry about this. But how are you doing? Hey, how you doing? We automatically, that's an automatic thing that we do when we walk up to somebody, and it's typically a one-word answer of good. And then we move on. So you're not really asking how they're doing. You're just being kind of cordial. So I really like the how's your world. It's like you want a response. It's showing that you want a response other than, hey, give me one word to try to come back at you. And getting to know them. Earlier we talked about that is like, I want to ask them, what do you need from me to help you, and versus like always me just giving them immediate feedback of what I think. What do they need from me? So and Jim, to ask me one more time, sorry, I know that was a longer thing.
Jimmy, you're on mute.
Jimmy's on mute right now, people. If people that are watching, he has this big, expensive microphone that doesn't actually.
Well, it's called muting at times where I don't want that outside noise come in. But thank you for letting me know on that. I appreciate Jonathan's usually the comedian in this, so thank you very much.
Just saying.
Yeah, just saying. No, but Coach, like, you know, athletes, we have such routines, right? And coaches set up routines, structure. What can we do when we transition out of playing to maybe have routines in our life to continue to have the success we had as athletes?
Absolutely. And one thing that I have found, and again, 25 years of doing this, our grades are better in season when we're missing a ton of class than for a fall sport. And then we get to the spring when they have more time, and I notice that grades go down. And the reason why is because in the fall, they don't have a lot of time to goof around. I mean, they may have a 2 or 3 hour window at night and they go, I got to get this done. Like, that's all I have. Versus now we're practicing in the morning. They may be done at 11 in the morning. And then they'll think, well, I've got till midnight to get this done. And then all of a sudden at 11 o'clock at night, they're like, oh, I better get that done or whatever. Or maybe they just go to bed and say, I'll do it in the morning, and they don't. But that's one thing that I've noticed is that as soon as they do start getting out of this routine, performance academically is affected for some. But listening to Jonathan and Taj, I mean, I think it's important to stay in a physical routine to help you also mentally. But they can speak as athletes. I didn't play college athletics, but they can speak as a college athlete. It's almost like it gets to the point where exercise, it feels like a punishment more than it feels like a health benefit or a means to an end. So you guys were doing it because, like, I'm doing this to be at my absolute strength to go up against this guy. And then you do get to that point, like y'all said, where it's like, who am I competing? Now I'm just kind of competing against myself, and I'm kind of over it. And so being able to still leave and go, look, I need to keep myself healthy. I need to do something. I try to stay away in practice of doing sprints as punishment. Running shouldn't feel like a punishment. Running is healthy. It should be used for health. Now, there are moments to do that, but I don't want them to feel like I'm making them exercise as a punishment, if that's a way to put it, because I think that can affect them when they leave. There are ways to get things done, definitely, but again, that's just coming from my point. I think it's having some of these former athletes talk to them and say how important it is to keep your life in a routine when you leave. Don't all of a sudden sleep till noon because you can. You know, you're going to be more productive if you get up and get going in life.
Taj, can you speak to that as well? Like, you being that former athlete and kind of what happened to you and maybe what you do now?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jim. And Coach McRoberts, such a funny point you bring up around, grades in the spring semester dropping. That was me. Fall semester, there's no time to mess around. We're traveling. I'm doing homework on the bus. Spring semester, I'll sleep in a little bit. My grades were always worse in the spring semester. Even have coaches checking class during the fall semester. So for me, I think the first thing is accountability. Like, if you're not everyone is wired when they leave their sport to be able to create their own structure or be their own disciplinarian, right? So in that case, you need to find people who can hold you accountable. So for me, aside from accountability, is like, you got to create your own structure. Like, I'm the type of person where if I'm working with a former athlete and they just have no idea how to spend their time, or they're spending time versus investing time, I'll just have very candid conversations with them. Like, why are you playing 3 hours of video games when you don't have a job right now? Or if you don't know what you want to do, that 3 hours, instead of playing 2K, you could spend that 3 hours not necessarily just applying for random jobs, but if you invest 3 hours of time figuring out what you actually want to do, what kind of field or industry you want to go into, making valuable connections, that's a much better use of your time than just throwing it away. And I'll also tell them, I'll tell them, get very acquainted with Google Calendar, right? Or make sure you're blocking off time. Block off time to work out if you have to. I'm the type of person where if it's not on my calendar, it's not getting done. So I try to encourage people. I think that's a great way, just to actually have a calendar, set it up, and actually schedule things is a great way for you to create your own structure. But yeah, that's all I would say about that.
Well, I would add to that, dude, to me, as I always tell, it's time management. And I'm a big fan of the calendar and writing things down. But the thing I always tell kids or younger players, or even my kids, is whether it's relationships, it's your sport, whether it's your career, whether it's your passions and stuff, ask yourself in your head and simplify it. And I got this from my dad, so I'm not going to take credit for it. Is it a bill or is it a payment? Is this making you money? Is it bringing something into your life? Or are you expending something out and getting nothing for it? Because like playing video games, yeah, it may be fun, but it's a bill. At the end of the day, it's taking something from you and you're not getting anything back for it. You could spend that time spending 30 minutes learning digital marketing and get a job at Google making $125 an hour. So think about that as a certified Google ad, and you don't have to leave your home. You could say, hey, I'm going to stay in shape. I'm going to get certified as a trainer and start training other athletes because that's what I was passionate about for myself. You could spend that time doing something else. So I just break it down to that. It's like, is it a bill or is it a payment? And then ask yourself that honest question and then manage your time.
Yeah. Well, Steven, Coach McRoberts and Taj, thank you all for joining us today. We always like to ask our guests one last question before we let them, before we allow you guys to tell us where we can learn more about you. But Coach McRoberts, we'll start with you. And then Taj, in your opinion, what does it mean to be a champion in life?
I mean, that's a great question. For me, I'm a man of faith, and I think living that out and a lot of the things that we've talked about as far as being the example for my players, I tell them my two toughest jobs are, and they're not jobs, but it's being a husband and a dad. And so if I'm doing those two things well, then I think I'm living as champion for my family. And but it's showing up every day with a great attitude, great work ethic. That's what I ask of my players, and getting the most out of yourself. And I think if you will work hard and can look in the mirror at the end of the day, like I talked about earlier, and say I did my best, I think you're a champion.
Taj, what about yourself?
I'm going to piggyback right off of Coach McRoberts' answer because I thought that was really well said. For me, it's a feeling. That's the first thing that came to mind when you asked the question, Jason. The feeling of being a champion in life is when you lay your head on the pillow at night to go to sleep and you know, not only did I get better today, not only did I move the chains in my life, become a better human being, but I also had an impact on someone's life in some way, shape, or form. That feeling to me is what being a champion in life is.
Simple, but very impactful. And so thank you guys both for
I'll take that. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah. Hey, the best things in life are the most simplest, but most impactful. So I love you guys' answers on those. Taj, I know you got 4 books out. You got a website. Where can people find you? Where can people learn more about your work?
Yeah, the best place is tajdashaun.com, just like it's spelled on the screen. Just add a .com to it, or at Taj Dashaun on all social media platforms. I'm more active on LinkedIn, more so than Instagram. But yeah, you can get the books on the website. They're on Amazon, but I always tell people, support your self-published authors and order directly from me. And if you do that, I'll send you a signed copy. So that's where I'm at. Oh, and last thing, my podcast is on it's called ThriveAfterSports, just like the book and the sign in the background. It's available on all podcast platforms. So go check that out. But all those links and everything are on my website anyway.
Awesome. Yeah. And Coach McRoberts, where can people follow you, learn more about Missouri State volleyball, learn more about yourself? Where can we find you?
Well, I can tell you, first of all, they're going to enjoy following Taj a whole lot more than me. Enjoyed listening to him today. I have a Twitter account. That's about it. And they can, of course, look up Missouri State volleyball on the internet, to find out anything about the team, that sort of thing. But that's pretty much it for me. I'm pretty low maintenance on some of that stuff at this point.
Well, hey, I will say though, some of your tweets have been really insightful, like in regards to like parenting and sports, and so don't cut yourself short. I know, Taj is impressive, but you put out some good stuff on Twitter as well, guys. So, Coach McRoberts, Taj, thank you guys for joining us today. It's been a great episode. I learned a lot more about how to transition better in life as well. So, appreciate having you guys on.
Thank you, guys. This has been a pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
All right, guys. Well, for me, I think that the takeaway was, especially what they said about being a champion at the end, like, did you lay your head on the pillow? Did you make a difference for yourself and for other people? And I think, at the end of the day, if you're doing those two things and you do what you love, that's a great way to live life.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Well, no, Jonathan, you go ahead. Come on.
Yeah, for me, it's just a constant reminder, having been where Taj has been at and having, dealt with people and interacted with people like Coach McRoberts, both as a player and as a parent and as a peer in some cases. I just really keep emphasizing enjoying the journey and being present. And, and just if that's what I kept getting consistently around all that stuff is, when it's over, you have the transition, you're having these challenges, but enjoying those blessings and enjoying that journey as opposed to being bitter or angry, upset or hurt or detrimental to yourself when those things get taken away. And when you like you said, lay your head down on that pillow, did you try to get better and were you blessed that day and move forward and be grateful? Nobody's going to do it perfectly. We all have those moments where we go to bed and we're just stressed out and pissed off. And then finally, the one thing Coach McRoberts I thought was super profound, and I do it to this day, is most of the stuff you were stressed about actually never happened. Like you get stressed about a presentation, and I've done that at my current job. I've been, oh my God, we got to get the stuff ready. Oh, the CEO needs to see this stuff. And then what if we miss this? What if we miss? And then Thursday happens, we have it, it goes off without a hitch. And we're like, we just stressed out for no reason. So if I would take that away, that'd be my number one takeaway. Most of the stuff you stress out about or worry about actually never happened.
Mm-hmm. And I think like when Taj talked about, I think is we need to get more like athletes and people realizing like, what else are you passionate about in life? Not just the sport, because we have so much even new sports. Kids are so focused on one thing. What else outside of that? And do certain things like you talk about, internships, things like that, and start developing yourself while you're playing the sport. So when the sport is over, there's something you can transition in. Because so many kids, they focus on that sport, that's it ends, and now they're like, what's next? Yeah. So I think it's that, what are things you're passionate about, and figuring out ways to develop some of that passion in areas while you're playing. And so there's maybe a transition once you're done. And by the way, before we leave, listen, did anybody get Jimmy today?
Nope.
Not by me, though. Because I know Jason got Jimmy twice by Jonathan, by Jonathan, and I got Jimmy'd once by Jason.
Oh.
So I'm just saying,
you got
I don't think I Jimmy'd anybody today. I didn't have the mic working. I get that. But did I Jimmy anybody today?
Nope. That's 2 in a row, folks.
Twice.
That's a streak. There we go.
I'm aware of the Jimmys going on around here. Okay?
Hey, but no matter what happens, it still be called "Did you get Jimmy?" because you're the originator. So no, regardless.
Hey, probably, man. Hey, just to leave one shout out, man. One thing I love about both of you, Jason, you're an amazing person at networking and getting people together and making people expanding their life. Like, because I've met some amazing people that are part of my world because of you, or it's grown even more people that I connected through you, but I got to know them better because of you. And Jim, you always become I'm gonna say this and I'm admitting it. You're a moral compass, man. You always remind me it's about who you are, not what you do. It's about your community and that spiritual point of view. You are a moral compass on this show every single time.
Well, Jonathan, and your insights as a dad of kids older and as a player that played well beyond myself or Jimmy, that experience as well. Likewise, man. So, and your heart, you have one of the biggest hearts I've seen because I've been out to your house. You're one of the best guests I've ever had.
That's the thing I was going to say, Jason. He looks like Rock. He's big like Rock, look like him.
And he brings the looks,
walking around, but he's got this
I'm trying, man.
Watermelon inside of him. So.
Yeah.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying really hard, man. It's been hard getting to the gym lately, man. Oof. Now that COVID's kind of lifting, everybody's driving, everybody's out now. Oof. Not that I'm not happy about it, people, but it's gotten congested again.
Well, fellas, enjoy the rest of your Friday, and we'll see you all next episode.
All right, guys.
Thanks, guys. Take care.